Have you ever wondered what people really think of you when they believe you have nothing to offer? What if the person they underestimated was the one who held their entire future in his hands? This story will leave you questioning everything. Stay with me till the end. It was a chilly Tuesday evening when Thomas decided to put his plan into motion. Ditching his designer suits for a worn-out, ragged brown jacket and scuffed sneakers, he transformed himself into a seemingly homeless man. His goal? To experience firsthand how his staff treated customers who didn't look like they belonged in an upscale establishment. As he stepped into the restaurant, the warmth of the decor contrasted sharply with the cold reception he was about to receive. Chandeliers glistened overhead, and the aroma of gourmet dishes filled the air. But as Thomas made his way to an empty table in the corner, it became evident that appearances mattered more than anything else in this place. Enter Margaret, the senior waitress. With her neatly tied blonde hair and a demeanor sharper than a steak knife, she approached Thomas with barely concealed disdain. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone dripping with judgment. "I'd like to see the menu," Thomas replied politely. Margaret's eyes scanned him from head to toe, and her lips curled into a sneer. "This isn't your kind of place," she said, her voice loud enough to draw a few glances from nearby diners. Undeterred, Thomas tried again. "I can pay for the food." Margaret laughed, a cold, dismissive sound that echoed in the elegant room. "With what? Spare change from your pocket?" she scoffed. The room grew quieter as curious eyes turned toward the unfolding scene. But Margaret wasn't done yet. "If you don't leave now, I'll call security," she snapped. Thomas remained calm, his voice steady as he requested to speak with the manager. But when Frank, the manager, arrived, the situation went from bad to worse. Frank didn't even give Thomas a chance to explain. "Leave now, or I'll call the cops," he barked, his face a mask of authority. Feeling the weight of the stares and the hostility, Thomas sighed, nodded, and walked out. But this was far from over. Thomas stepped out onto the bustling street, the cool air a sharp contrast to the heat of his emotions. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Garrison, we need to meet. There's something you need to see." The next morning, as the sun bathed the city in golden light, Margaret and Frank were back at work, blissfully unaware of the storm heading their way. Margaret couldn't stop bragging about the previous night's incident. "People like him shouldn't even step into places like this," she declared, her laughter echoing in the staff room. Meanwhile, Thomas arrived at the restaurant, this time in his signature tailored suit and polished shoes. He was accompanied by Mr. Garrison, the former owner of the restaurant. As they stepped through the doors, the lively chatter of the staff came to an abrupt halt. Margaret's face turned pale as recognition dawned on her. Frank's confident demeanor faltered, his smile now forced and shaky. "Good morning," Thomas greeted, his tone calm but commanding. Margaret and Frank hurried over, their previous arrogance replaced with nervous energy. "Welcome, sir," Frank said, his voice slightly trembling. "How can we assist you today?" Thomas ignored the pleasantries and turned to Mr. Garrison. "Shall we begin?" Mr. Garrison clapped his hands, gathering the staff. "Everyone, meet Mr. Caw. He is the new owner of the Golden Plate Bistro." The room fell into a stunned silence. Margaret's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. Frank's attempt at a welcoming smile vanished, replaced by a look of dread. Thomas addressed the staff, his voice steady but firm. "I came here yesterday, dressed as someone who might not look like your typical customer. I wanted to see how people are treated in this establishment, and what I experienced was unacceptable." His gaze landed on Margaret, who looked like she wished the ground would swallow her whole, and then on Frank, who was shifting uncomfortably on his feet. Margaret tried to stammer an apology. "Sir, I didn't realize." "That's the problem," Thomas interrupted, his voice rising slightly. "You didn't realize because you didn't care. You judged me by my appearance and treated me with disrespect. Is this how you treat all your customers?" Frank stepped forward, attempting to salvage the situation. "Mr. Caw, I assure you, this was a misunderstanding." "Enough," Thomas snapped, his patience wearing thin. "Your job as a manager is to ensure that every customer is treated with respect, regardless of how they look. Instead, You escalated the situation and refused to listen. That's not leadership. That's negligence. He turned to Mr. Garrison. I think you have something to add. Mr. Garrison stepped forward, his expression somber. Margaret, Frank, your behavior goes against everything this restaurant stands for. Effective immediately, you're both terminated. Gasps filled the room as the other staff members exchanged glances. Margaret looked like she might cry, while Frank's face burned with humiliation. Thomas addressed the remaining staff, his voice softer but still firm. Let this be a lesson. This restaurant will only succeed if we treat every customer with dignity. That's the standard I expect, and that's the standard we will uphold. As Thomas and Mr. Garrison left the restaurant, Margaret and Frank stood frozen, the weight of their actions sinking in. Outside, Thomas took a deep breath. He had proven his point, but more importantly, he had set a precedent for the kind of business he wanted to run. A business built on respect, fairness, and humanity. This story isn't just about a millionaire testing his employees. It's a reminder to all of us. Never judge a book by its cover, and always treat others with kindness and respect. And that, dear viewers, is the story of how a multimillionaire taught a lesson in humanity. If you found this story as impactful as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell for more eye-opening stories. Let us know in the comments. How would you have reacted if you were in Thomas's shoes? Until next time, take care and stay kind.